time to open up your eyes, 'cause we were made to fly. We can do anything. We'll shine like the sun, the moon, the stars. We can go anywhere. They'll see us no matter where we are, 'cause we got the fire. We got the fire. Show the world the impossible is possible. Show the world the impossible is possible. There's a moment when you understand. You don't gotta follow all the plans. It's time to open up your hands.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for our April edition of Coffee Talk with Trey, where we're going to recap the April Board of Education meeting for the Cobb County School District Board of Education. And so thank you for joining me. I do first want to say thank you for being patient with me as our board member. Our board meetings are usually the third Thursday of every month, sometimes a little different based on things that are happening. And this month it was the third Thursday, and usually I am here to give you a recap that following Friday, and so was unable to do so on yesterday as it was a day full of different meetings and things. I had a leadership Cobb event that lasted all day, and then after that, board of directors. I'm on the board of directors for Georgia PTA, and we had a board of directors meeting on yesterday and all day today. So I am just getting home actually. So here's my my Georgia PTA board of directors shirt, and we've been meeting to plan our summer, our trainings, and for the next couple of months. And so just getting ready to train all of our local PTAs, our council PTAs, and our district PTAs. And so we just had a wonderful time the last couple of days. But also on last night, one of the PTAs that I'm on the board for at Bryant Elementary, we had a spring fling at Bryant, and it was a successful event, and so had to be there as well. So I could not get to you on yesterday, but I am getting to you today to make sure that I give you some updates in regards to what just transpired in our Thursday meeting. And again, as I promised, I will do this monthly, and so there's no exception. So our meeting was held Thursday, and we were given our monthly financial status report from our CFO, Brad Johnson, and then we were given a literacy update from our chief academic officer and our chief leadership officer, Ms. Sherry Hill. And so, as you can see, it is a very extensive literacy report. I'm going to actually run through a few of the highlights that I wanted to bring out in regards to the literacy in within our Cobb County School District. And so I'm gonna do that briefly and quickly for you guys. The presentation is online, so or you can go back to the school district's YouTube page and rewatch the meeting. And if you want to get more details in regards to this literacy report, because again, the literacy in Cobb County, that's a priority not just of myself, but fellow board members and our superintendent and school district in regards to children reading and reading on grade level. And so this report just kind of gave us an overview of where we're at district-wide. And of course, for those of us in post 3, we want to know where we are in regards to schools that are in post 3. And so we will make sure that we get that data as well. So this extrapolated down to where we are as a district or as a post rather, so that we know what we need to do as a community and what we need to do as parents and things of that nature. And so we talked about our literacy update. We talked about that within the Cobb County School District, we have adopted a balanced literacy instruction. And so I'm going to go into what that looks like for the Cobb County School District. And so plenty of resources. Let me just start with that. We have a ton of resources that has been given to all grade levels in regards to supporting our literacy efforts within the Cobb County School District. But I want to start off with what we call the ELF, our Early Literacy Framework, and that's K2, grades K through 2. And so there's I don't want to call it an intervention, but there's a focus on making sure that we start off as early as possible with making sure that children are reading on grade level. And so that is the early literacy framework that I'm talking about. So back in 2016, it started off in 6 schools. Some of those schools were in Post 3. And now we're at 37 plus schools within the Cobb County School District. Over 300 teachers are part of this framework, and 75 instructional paraprofessionals. And this program has been able to grow as a result of some of the federal funds that we receive. So again, putting some of those funds around resources and around initiatives has been important. And so that's what is being done here. And so majority of the schools, if you notice, and I don't know how clear you can see this, but here's like a map of Cobb County School District, of Cobb County rather. And if you see all those red and yellow dots, majority of them are in the southern portion of the county. So if you took a line and drew it probably at Windy Hill or Terrell Mill, and anything south of that, a lot of the elementary schools in that particular area, you'll see that they are part of the early literacy framework. There's a couple, looks like in Ackworth, Kennesaw area, and then some one-offs up in the northern portion of the county. But majority of this effort is in the southern portion of the county. In addition to that, we were briefly given the history and how long we've been working on this. Again, I told you 2016, we started off with a couple of pilot programs, and now we've expanded to 37 schools. And then we talked about next steps for the early literacy framework. And now that we have data and things like that, and we're moving forward as we analyze the data, we recognize that there is a need to provide what we call LETRS training. It's LETRS training. And it's training in the science of reading for all of Title I schools involved in this literacy grant. And so, and we'll go into that in just a minute as well. Another big portion of it is CTLS access, or assess. I'm sorry, CTLS assess. We always talk about, well, what does CTLS do? And now that we're not in the virtual environment for the most part, what are we using CTLS for? So CTLS, our platform for the school district. It's like a learning management software. We still use it for assessments and our students' assessments and where they are, academically. And so you can go into CTLS assess and look at all the different assessments that our children are taking, and you'll be able to see their scores and where they are as far as their Lexiles and different things like that. And so that's where that information is housed, even in regards to the early literacy initiative schools that we have. So again, we talked about the Readiness and Literacy Grant, where we're going to impact 3rd grade reading level proficiencies, and that's what that grant is for. But let's get to LETRS. We're talking about the science of reading and who is engaged. And so, and this is what it is, LETRS, so that you can see, for those that like to research and follow up on some of the things that we're doing. Again, it's going to include some Title I schools, K through 2, 29 principals, some academic coaches, 116 teachers. We got district leaders that are also part of this initiative. And so what this is going to work on is bridging the gap between our early literacy framework. It's also talking about the science of reading and getting some of that professional development for our teachers that are working with our students in this intervention piece. And also bring in some of that Orton Gillingham training around phonics and multisensory language that many of our schools have been successful with when they've been able to get that professional development piece for some of their educators in their area. And so we talked about, even after we get out of that K2, what we're looking at as far as literacy framework for grades 3 through 5. We talked about the 6 through 12 classroom and what that looks like around early literacy and our literacy interventions. Many of you parents, you will hear your children talk about Head Sprout or System 44, Read 180, and these are some of the systems that we're using to provide additional intervention and support for students around literacy and getting, as far as closing that academic gap. So many of the schools may have like a Read 180 lab and or something like that, where the kids are getting on the computer and things like that, doing like specials and their enrichment periods. Then we talked about the reading inventory. So for years we've been talking about our reading inventory, our math inventory, and this assessments that we take 3 times a year. And that helps us to gauge the growth in our students, not just a one-time test, but it helps us to gauge in the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and then toward the end of the year, how much growth we've seen within our students. And just kind of making sure that we are seeing growth. And then if we're not seeing growth in your students, then we can apply some additional interventions to ensure that we are getting the growth that we're looking for. And the good thing about the RI is that we can probably see, school-wide, we can see region-wide, we can see area-wide. And so I think this is important. I see you said, is it 3 or 4? Help me, Teresha, because I just saw the comment. I'm not sure where we were within this particular part of the presentation. So just bring that back and let me know what it was that we were specifically talking about in regards to your question. District reading inventory, and it talked about the growth and that we've seen some growth within our reading inventory. So the RI, is it for 3 or 4? So I'm told that it's at least at a minimum of 3 times a year that the RI test is taken, the beginning, in the middle, and the end of the year. And so even within this report, we were seeing based on those 3 different assessment time periods. And I'm sure for some students, it may be 4, based on, again, if they needed some additional intervention and they just wanted to kind of test and see where they were and see how much growth was actually happening interim-wise, that is a possibility, I'm sure. Let's see. We looked at where we are as far as college and career readiness. Some parents may get a reading intervention or a reading inventory or RI parent letter, just letting you know what those scores look like. Please be on the lookout for stuff like this because, again, this helps us to determine where your child is. It helps you to determine where your child is as far as where they're reading and where the gaps are. And so this kind of is prescriptive to let us know exactly what we need to do to kind of close those gaps from a parent perspective, but also from a school perspective as well. We talked about Georgia milestone assessments and how that plays into this. We talked about the PSAT and how that data is also charged into helping us to determine where our students are academically as far as reading is concerned, and the Iowa and the administration of the Iowa test. Now, we went into this, but again, a lot of this stuff is district-wide, so we don't necessarily have the extrapolated numbers to assist us where we are within Post 3 and where we are within the schools here in the southern portion of the county, but that is information that we're going to gather and get and be able to assess and see where we are and how much growth, because again, as we looked at that map earlier, majority of those intervention have been placed in the southern portion of the county. So, for someone like myself, I like to see what is the return on investment in regards to this and how much growth is our students getting, and when is the projected timeline when we expect students to actually begin reading on grade level or above grade level. And so that is some of that thought process that goes into, for me, what I'm looking at when I'm looking at the data. We talked about our graduation rates and again, milestones again for elementary students and middle school students. And then let's see what else we had. Learning Quest, Summer Learning Quest is coming up. Again, intervention piece. We started it last year. We will have Summer Learning Quest again this year. And this is for those that have been invited. So the lowest 25% of students. So if your child has been invited to come to the Summer Learning Quest, that is an indicator that we need to apply some additional prescriptive intervention for your child. And so that's very important that we just don't disregard that invitation, because that is a clear sign and an indication that we need to support your child more around making sure that they are proficient with reading. And so the summer learning program or summer learning quest, that is where we will start adding again more prescriptive reading measures again to make sure that our child is, that we're closing the gap and that our children are moving forward in regards to that. So again, summer learning quest will be held at 5 elementary schools and 2 middle school sites around the district. Again, a great summer learning environment. Is not just reading. It's supposed to be a fun learning environment. Students have participated in the past and said that they enjoyed it. My 2 boys participated in the past. They absolutely love it. My youngest is talking about when will it be again. He's hoping it's at Clarkdale because he is in love with Dr. Maynard over there, and Miss Holt, the assistant principal, and so he's looking to go back. Then we also talked about high school credit recovery summer school. So we're talking about a tuition-free 10-day program. Again, this is important because, as you know, credit recovery has not always been free. So we really need to take advantage of this opportunity for some of our high school students who may need some additional support as far as getting credit recovery. It will be tuition free. It's a 10-day program, so about 2 weeks, June 4th through June 30th, Monday through Thursday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Okay, so because there's a school holiday, June 20th, right in the middle there, we won't have anything done on June 20th. But again, Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., June 14th to June 30th, your high school students, if they need credit recovery, it is free. Please ensure that they are taking advantage of it. Now, the maximum, it'll be a maximum of 1 course credit or 2 half credit course credits. It will be held at 3 high school sites, so be on the lookout for that. So we'll know, where the students will be taking the credit recovery at. There will be transportation from your home to the summer school sites. So please be on the lookout so that we can plan accordingly. Breakfast and lunch will be provided, so that's important as well. And so we want to make sure that we are participating. Just to give you an update, it says summer 2021, we had close to almost 2,000 students who recovered at least 1 course credit. Okay, and so what we are projecting this time is probably equal to closer to 1,500. So again, please take advantage of it, especially our seniors and juniors, sophomores. This is very, very important to make sure that we stay on track in regards to that. So that's from the literacy update. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Howard. Let's see. We have also, after that, we had several recognitions in the evening meeting in regards to a lot of great wrestling stuff happening on in our county, a lot of great sports stuff. And then we had a literacy argumentative essay state champion come out of Hillgrove High School. So we had a lot of great different awards and recognitions that we did in the evening session. But some of the things that I want to talk about, while there aren't many or any principal level changes or anything notated in our area as of yet, I did want to make mention that Brumby Elementary will be getting a new principal. We had several retirements. One of the retirements in our area here in South Cobb, specifically Nickajack Elementary, Miss Laura Meyer, she's retiring. So Nickajack will see some changes in regards to leadership. So just making sure that you are aware of some of those things if you're in the southern portion of the county in regards to that. So some of the board action items, and we had a ton of them, so I'm gonna try and rip through these quickly. We approved the right-of-way at Lewis Elementary, so that's some transportation-related items. Resolution to phase out existing East Valley Elementary School stuff, so now we can move forward with the building and finishing up that particular project. This is an older SPLOST project. Architect appointment for the South Cobb High School gymnasium replacement. So this is important. Again, South Cobb High School, your new gym is coming, as we have approved the architect for that particular project. So again, more SPLOST projects coming to Post 3, and we are excited about this particular initiative for South Cobb High School and getting that gym replacement. If you recall, the last major SPLOST project was our theater, and which was a great addition. It is a beautiful facility that we've put to good use over the last year or so. And so be on the lookout for the gymnasium as we've appointed an architect and going through that design process. And we'll be moving forward with that as well. Sprayberry High School, if you remember when we were talking about SPLOST, that particular school requesting some major upgrades. And so that process is getting started simply because they're already in the middle of construction. And so it only makes sense to kind of timeline it so that there's no break in construction, so that we can kind of finish it all at one time with the architects. So those architects have been approved for Sprayberry High School upgrades and their renovations that's going to take place for their classroom replacement project. Let's see, we talked about portable classrooms relocation. We just renewed our lease on that. We purchased 10 school buses. Okay, of course, again, the school buses have air conditioning. I know that that was a concern several years ago, but that is part of what we do as board members. We challenge and say, hey, let's be better, let's do better. I believe Dr. Howard was a part of that conversation, and now it is the way we do business now as it relates to school buses. But we just purchased 10 school buses. In the meeting, I wouldn't say jokingly, but was kind of jokingly asked if we were going to look at electric buses. And so it was made known that a district our size, that is not anything we can look at currently. But again, always looking to the future and how we can be better and do better with resources, our natural resources. And so again, not now, but maybe later. Let's see, what else was it? We approved some SPLOST projects for Hillgrove High School for their classroom addition. Loving Good Middle School, their classroom additions were approved as well. McEachern High School has some plumbing improvements that's coming. That will be in the new Post 3 come January. Technically now, but I'm assuming coming January when I will be the official representative of McEachern High School. We have some plumbing improvements coming there, and this is a big one because, you know, Pebblebrook High School is in the middle of construction. We just finished some projects at our stadium. We have a field house. Our theater is near completion. In fact, we expect in the next month or so before we get out of school, hopefully we will be able to walk into our brand new theater. But we also have classroom additions and a new gym that's also scheduled to take place at Pebblebrook High School. So if you've ever been to the campus, you'll notice there's a big hole in the back right before you get to the stadium. And that is where our new classroom addition, 3-story classroom addition, our new gymnasium will be going. But we run into some rock issues. There's rock underground that has to be blasted. And so there's an additional cost of $334,000 that needed to be approved so that we can move forward with getting that taken care of. So again, we can get that much needed classroom addition completed for Pebblebrook High School. We're told that it does not affect the timeline, that we're still on schedule. And so that's exciting news as well. The Board of Education tentatively approved the budget for the fiscal year 2023. And we'll go through that in just a few moments. And then after executive session, we also made a motion and approved to engage in some real estate purchase out in the Powder Springs area. And so that's kind of a brief overview of board actions that took place during our meeting. I do want to go over some of the discussion items for the superintendent's remarks. One of the big ones that affects a lot of our schools here in South Cobb, whether you're in Post 2 and Post 3 and some of the schools that cross over into some of the feeder patterns between these two schools, and I believe another school out, Dowell Elementary, which may be in Post 7, in regards to some of the theme programming that we have in our schools. And this particular one that we're going to discuss briefly is dual language immersion. And so over the last few weeks, we received a ton of emails, and I've gotten a ton of phone calls in regards to the dual language immersion program and what is going to happen with this great programming piece. And so I hear you. I am a big supporter of dual language. Originally, I'm from Miami, Florida. I was born in Miami, Florida, and I started my formative elementary, kindergarten, first, second grade in Miami or Dade County schools, Miami-Dade County schools. And what we're doing here as a theme program was that was common education. So in elementary school, this was again 30 some odd 40 years ago, I learned 1 2 3 uno dos tres. And it's not good now. Spanish is not good now, but we learned everything dual language because of the population of students at every school. Well, that's called dual language immersion here in Georgia. And so it is or even nationwide, that is a program where we're immersed, teaching half the day in English, the other half of the day in Spanish. And so students are learning 2 languages at the same time. And so one of the benefits that I see from that and that I've heard from parents is, how amazing it is for native English speaking students speaking Spanish and other languages fluently, by the time they're in 5th grade. We had a parent during public comment, and we'll go through that, explain how they went out of the country. They went to Mexico for one of the breaks, and how awesome it was that their students, their 6, 7, and 8, 9, 10-year-olds were able to have fluent conversations with people in other countries that speak Spanish as their native language. And then the beautiful part of it is, even for our native speaking Spanish-speaking students, those where Spanish is the language of the household, those students now are able to not just speak the language because that's what they speak at home, but they're able to read it and they're able to write it. And so the literacy piece is a big benefit for all students who are part of those programs. And so there will be some modifications to this program. Let's start there. There will be some modifications to this program. I believe one of the challenges that the district has raised is staff or staffing and hiring bilingual teachers has become increasingly challenging. So that's an area where we need to improve upon as far as recruiting and going to different areas to recruit and hire teachers that are bilingual. But that's work that we'll have to do on this end. So I think we discussed that incoming kindergartners at Nickajack, Smyrna, Mableton, Dowell, and Russell. I believe those are the schools. I might need to check that. I was writing fast and listening fast. That they will have incoming kindergartners. Now, for my Clarkdale family, my City View, Riverside family who have already called, I've spoken to 3 parents at Clarkdale, 2 parents at City View in regards to this. The program, I believe, is coming to an end for these particular schools, and not necessarily being phased out, through the kindergarten program and things of that nature. I believe they are just being phased out completely. So we need to discuss how we move forward in these particular schools. And so those are conversations that we're going to have with our chief leadership officer in the coming days, as we're unable to really flesh those conversations out in the meeting. So we will have to have additional meetings to discuss how we move forward, specifically for areas such as, in post 3 that are being eliminated. And so again, we'll talk about it. We will definitely talk about it. We are adding dual language in 6th grade, or middle school rather, to Floyd Middle School, and also Campbell. Well, let me rephrase that. To Campbell Middle School, of course. But the talk is that we are looking at adding it to Floyd Middle School as well. And so I believe some memos have gone out to students that are currently at that stage. And I believe Floyd will be a school choice option for those that desire to continue their education. I know Mableton Elementary is a dual language program that's going to continue, and Russell, they feed into Floyd. And so some of the other areas around where, like Nickajack and Smyrna, you will have options as well as far as Campbell and Floyd. And so we're going to get more clarity in the days to come. I know many of you have already received emails in regards to what is going to happen. And so please, let's pay attention to some of the timelines, because these timelines are very important as we're planning for the next academic school year. And we'll come back to we'll come back to dual language immersion, because I think this is a piece that we need to have a town hall. And I may reach out again to you, Dr. Howard, in regards to the schools in post 2, the schools in post 3, and just talk about what the community desires to do moving forward. Because again, initiatives like these are, as our district has always expressed, that they are community related, or they grow out of the community. And if you're anywhere in the Smyrna area, you'll know that this is something that has been a great benefit to the Smyrna community. I know that there's several pre-K dual language immersion programs, simply because, again, we're supporting a pathway that the community has embraced. So again, we need to talk, and we need to really have firm conversation about the longevity and the sustainability of this dual language immersion program that has been such a great benefit to students in the southern portion of the county. So we will definitely do that in the coming months. We need to, so the superintendent also discussed cityhood, and just relayed to everyone that there is no impact to schools based on cityhood. There's no advocacy either way on whether we should or shouldn't have additional cities added to Cobb County, but just simply made a notation that there is no impact to schools based on calls and emails that he's been receiving. We also talked about all 16 high schools having AP honors recognition. And so congratulations to all 16 high schools in regards to that. And then we just basically gave some dates after that. May 1st is National Principal Appreciation Day. We all know, if you're in the PTA world, May 2nd through the 6th is National Teacher Appreciation. and we've been working hard to make sure we honor our teachers, and we've also done that with our budget. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And then May 11th is National School Nurse Day. So those are some of the upcoming recognition days where we can participate and just show a little love, especially for our nurses who have helped us get through probably one of the most memorable times in our history in regards to this pandemic. Let's see what else we got going on. That's it for that. Okay, I want to move into public comment. Public comments in the day session. In our work session, we had looks like 10 people who participated in public comment, and the majority of the conversation was again around dual language immersion and making sure that we are responsive to the longevity and the sustainability of those programs in our schools. And so the first speaker was from Russell Elementary, and they Corey Stevens spoke in regards to the program and the benefits thereof. Second person to speak was Mr. Michael Garza, and he's come before several times, but he wanted to express his concern in regards to racism in our schools, and he was standing in support with the students of Campbell High School, and he talked about the trauma that he experienced over 37 years ago dealing with racism and how that continues to affect you many years later. And so we appreciate him and his advocacy. Our next speaker was from Nickajack, Ms. Merrill, and she's a first grade DLI student. And she talked about the confidence that her son has received as a result of dual language. And then it was followed by Ms. Colleen, who is also a second grader Nickajack parent, and how that investment into the future of this program was necessary and needed. And so, again, most of the comments were in regards to this. Our next speaker, Mr. Juan Martinez, he has 3 kids, and he's a kindergarten parent who talked about the importance of reading in Spanish and how he has received opportunities as a result of being bilingual. And he also wanted to know, how are these decisions being made in regards to the sustainability of these DLI programs. Next speaker, Melissa Powell. Yes, she's an English. She has an English speaking household, but she's also looking at the future career path for her child. And she talked about how she in turn went back to become to get some dual language, and how it helped support her within job opportunities. And so again, more benefits about DLI. Karen K, DLI at Smyrna. And so she also has 2 kids again at the DLI daycares. Remember, I was telling you there's a community response around this DLI program. And she talked about that being bilingual should be common practice. And I agree with her. This is something that is it's bigger than, it's a skill set that students are going to need if we're going to be a global society. And Georgia is a global state. We do business around the world. And so this is a benefit for us. Smyrna Elementary School kindergarten parent, Talene, spoke in regards to private schools actually offering DLI, but the fact that some of our public schools was offering it, she decided to go with the public school. And so these things actually add value, not just to the community that we're serving, not just to the community school, but to the communities that we're serving. You know, we talk about in Cobb County how our great schools drive up property value and makes us one of the best place to teach, lead, and learn, and people want to come. It's these programs that also do that. And so the Smyrna community has really rallied behind this particular program. So I understand the intentionality around the advocacy for this particular program. Russell, PTA president, Russell Elementary School. She came, Ms. Lindsay, and she and I have talked in the past, but she talked about her daughter went to Disney World. They went to Disney World just recently, and her daughter spoke with Princess Elena in Spanish. Princess Elena is our Latin princess. And so after Princess Elena leaned over to the parent and said, "Hey, she's really good." And so to have to hear these things is exciting, you know, because you see growth in your students, you see confidence in your students, and again, it's just exciting. So she wanted to make sure that she came and spoke as well. And so thank you. In the night session, we had 15 speakers. Again, a lot of it was around dual language immersion, but some of the speakers was around the racism concern that we have within our schools. And our Campbell students have kind of led the way on advocating to see policy change. And so that was part of this night session. So the first speaker Ms. Tova Ringland. She is a special needs advocate, a parent of special needs students, and so she has come monthly to talk about how we can better serve students with special needs. And so I really appreciate her advocacy. As someone who sits on the state advisory panel for special needs here with the Georgia Department of Education, I know how important it is for advocacy in regards to ensuring that students have the necessary resources and the necessary curriculum package to be successful. And so I appreciate her and her continual advocacy. Her particular conversation this week was around sex ed curriculum in K-12 for students with special needs, and making sure that we have modified curriculum for those students so that they can also be aware of, the correct vernacular and terminology and things of that nature, so that students can express if something is happening. And as you know, things are happening. We watch the news here in Cobb County, and so we do know that. Rebecca Saylor. So she came and she spoke. She's a DLI parent at Nickajack, and she's also a post 2 candidate. So those of you that have been following, Rebecca Saylor will be running to be the board member for post 2. We'll talk about post 2 and some of those changes in just a second and why it's important, specifically for those of you that are in Mableton. But I also want to make note that board member Sharice Davis and board member Dr. Jahal Howard have both endorsed Becky Saylor for to be the post 2 board member. So, but she was advocating today in regards to DLI and not to scale down that particular program. Then our third person, again, this is starting to go into the Campbell Middle School advocacy for the board policy change. Our first person was Ms. Kezia Kennedy, and she's a student at Campbell advocating for revision in the code of conduct and around racism, hate speech. Then the second person, Ms. English, she's a Campbell High School student, and she was also more concerned around Board of Education and avoidance, and not necessarily discussing the issues and engaging this group specifically, but the avoidance and how and in fact, I think her word was complacency, how our complacency spoke volumes to her. And it was interesting. She said that changes occur at the ballot box. And so she said, and I thought this was really good. Oftentimes, when students come, they're juniors and seniors. So they're 17, 16, they're at the point of voting. And so making sure that we listen to this group of students, because again, this could be a big voting block across the county, from north, south, east, and west, because you have students that are graduating all over the county every year. And so hundreds of students. And so when we see advocacy like this, and the advocacy that isn't just at Campbell, we got students from Pebblebrook that are supporting people in the northern portion of the county and the east portion of the county. They all have different concerns and challenges as students that they want the Board of Education to address in regards to policy. And so again, and she's right. Voting does matter. And so a lot of change can happen at the ballot box. And so love to hear when our students are civically engaged to that effect. Our next student, president of the student body at Campbell High School, and she talked about following protocol but still needing the Board of Education to address the policy around racism. Jennifer Susko, we've heard from her for many years. She is a former counselor at Mableton Elementary. That's where most of you may remember her. She's advocating with our students, and she read a student letter from one of our students calling for safe learning environments, again, around the racism piece that we're talking about. The next person to speak was a Cobb parent of 2, Melissa Martin, and she was speaking on behalf of a student, and they're advocating in regards to safe schools, and I believe the student that she was reading for attended Pebblebrook High School. Next person, Ivan Ramirez. He talked about DLI and how opportunities opened up for him because he was bilingual. This person worked for NASA. He graduate of Georgia Tech, and he talked about how his family specifically chose Smyrna from when they were relocating from California, specifically because of the DLI programs that we have in that area. Next speaker, Christian Parrish. She's a DLI parent at Russell Elementary, and she came to advocate for the program as well. And she talked about the long-term benefits versus the short-term challenges, and challenged us to actually address it accordingly. Joanne Miranda, she has 2 students at Dowell Elementary. So again, we're talking about South Cobb all the way going to West Dowell. And she asked what data is being used to scale back the DLI program. Again, we are a data-driven district, so and that was where the request came from. Next speaker, Ben Os. Oh no. Yes, that's it. Ben Osborne, the next speaker. DLI parent, has a kindergartner at Smyrna Elementary. And he talked about how DLI students are outperforming their peers, those that are in the DLI program, and the importance of wanting to learn a second language. Next speaker was Alicia. Miss Alicia Watts. She has a kindergartner and a second grader at Nickajack, and she wanted to advocate for DLI. She's also on the PTA board there. We thank you for your service as it relates to PTA and supporting the school and the DLI program. And she talked about how the DLI parents are some of the biggest supporters and fundraisers for the school. And so we see when communities rally behind these programs, we see how important they are to the community and the school. So thank you, Alicia. Our next speaker, Palamo, a DLI elementary student in South Cobb, and he asks, how do we expand and improve outcomes in South Cobb schools? So we're talking about expanding more to just the 5 or 6 schools that we have designated as schools that will have kindergarten next year, but how do we expand all throughout South Cobb? And again, using data, this is a very important conversation. I remember having a meeting with James Wilson, and you may have heard that name several times. He does some of our demography work and some other consulting for the district. But several years ago, we were in a meeting with John Adams, if you may remember him. And we were talking about programming for the schools in Post 3 and how I would like to have seen more programming in themed schools. And he asked me about dual language immersion. I said, well, we have 2 or 3. And, he asked me, well, why wouldn't we have dual language at all the schools? Schools that have 30 and 40% Spanish speaking students, why would we not just provide that as a overall thing for all the schools in South Cobb? And I thought that was important. Ever since that conversation, it has been one of those things that I really was looking for and looking to as far as data and what program is really going to really improve educational outcomes for schools in South Cobb. And so again, DLI has proven to be one of those avenues. But while saying that, I've heard that students just not reading on grade level at certain schools, particularly in Post 3, that are in the DLI program. But the reality is, whether they're in the program or not, reading on grade level is a challenge across the board in some of our schools. So let's see what else we have. That was Ryan. Yes, Ryan. He's a parent at Nickajack, a product of McEachern High School, went to Georgia Tech as well. He asked about how do we get the program to continue to thrive and expand. And then last speaker was Miss Laura Judge. She spoke several, we see her monthly, and we appreciate her coming. She also read a report from a student, and this was a Muslim American student in regards to the fasting period that our Muslim community is currently in. And having some time and having support for those students that are that's going to need additional time off as a result of the fasting period. And she advocated also for our Jewish counterparts in regards to being conscious and of those religious holidays and the time that's needed in regards to that. So last, before we end this call, I want to talk about the new Post 2. Many of you have reached out, and I see that there needs to be some education on this. There are new maps. Reapportionment has redistricted our school boards. So for years, or at least for the last 10 years or so, Pebblebrook High School and our neighboring rival high school, South Cobb High School, have been in the same post. And most of the schools that feed into both of those schools are in Post 2, or they share some overlap with Post 3. And then we have a lot of the feeder schools, all of the feeder schools, basically, for McEachern High School as well. And so the new maps have changed, where the high schools that I will represent will be Pebblebrook High School and McEachern High School, and I will no longer represent South Cobb High School. And that is a big change. Specifically for those of you that voted 2 years ago for me, you now have the opportunity to vote for a new Board of Education member in May. There's 4 candidates that are currently out there. I do know that Mableton Improvement Coalition, the Austell Community Task Force, is going to pull together, as they have done in the past, and have a candidate forum so that you can meet the 4 candidates, so that you're prepared to go to the ballot box in May and vote for your candidate of choice. And then the winners of those 2 races, they will see each other in November. And I'm sure there will be other forums so that you can really flush out who will be your candidate of choice to represent you on the Cobb County School District Board of Education, because it will no longer be, you will no longer vote for Trey. As you've done 2 years ago, you will be voting for your new Board of Education member moving forward. And according to this map, either for the next 10 years or until this map is changed. So I do want to make sure that you are aware of that. So if you are in the South Cobb High School feeder area, Floyd, Russell, Sanders Elementary, that area is now part of Post 2, just north of Veterans Memorial. So if you live in the Nickajack, off of like Nickajack Road, where off of Floyd Road, where Kroger, Publix, and out that way, you are now in Post 2. So I need us to go to the Cobb County School District website, or also go to your My Voter page, mvp.sos.ga.gov, I believe. Don't quote me. Go there and check and see where your new post is, and who your new representative, because it's possible you're going to have a new representative. And so I have spoken with 3 of the 4 candidates over the last year or so. I've spoken with candidate Becky Saylor. I've spoken with candidate Steve. I've spoken with the other Democratic candidate. I've spoken with him. The only candidate that I have not spoken with is Anthony Sears. And so I've reached out to the Sears family. I've known the Sears families for years, as many of us we all went to school together at Pebblebrook. He's a graduate of Pebblebrook. In fact, one of the brothers, he and his family have students at Bryant Elementary, where we've had students. So we've seen each other and talked and enjoyed each other over the last couple of years. And so I've reached out to him to speak with him as well. And so hopefully I'll hear from him soon, so that I can help those of you that have the same values as I do and want to see and are a part of the same plan that we have been working on here in South Cobb, so that we can kind of flesh out who's going to help us move that plan forward. Because again, we've been working on that plan for the South Cobb area and for Pebblebrook area for years now. And so we want to make sure that we have a leadership that is responsive to that plan and is aware of what's happening here in Mableton and can help us move forward as a community. And so I do know that I'm close to making that decision, but I need to speak with Anthony as well. And so once we have done that, provided he reaches back out and we have that conversation, you will hear from me again very shortly in regards to that. So that is it for me. If there's any, I know that was a lot. I do know that was a lot. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop them in the box. If not, you always know how to reach out to me. You can even just write comments on this thread and we can go back and forth, because all the threads come to social media, whether you're watching from Coffee Talk with Trey, or whether you're watching from YouTube, Coffee Talk with Trey, or Trey for Cobb Schools. We can reply back and forth and all that kind of stuff. And even if that doesn't work, you all know how to reach out to me. You know my email addresses and phone numbers. If not, you can go to trayforcobbschools.org, or you can go to cobbk12.org, look up board members, click on that. You'll find my picture, email address, and phone number there. And those of you that have my personal email address and phone number, you're welcome to share it. And we can definitely have these conversations as we move forward if you have any questions, concerns, or challenges that we need to address. All right, I don't see any. I thank you for taking time out of your Saturday afternoon to listen. I'm going to actually have this replayed again on Sunday, so that those that, again, are used to the Friday and missed it and like, hey, what's going on? Because I did receive your text messages and emails in regards to that. You will have an opportunity, and the community will have an opportunity to replay it and listen. And if you have any questions, again, please contact me as you do, and we will move forward. So Again, I appreciate each and every one of you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And as always, know that I love you and that we will continue to do what is best for schools here in Post 3 and all over Cobb County and for every student here in Cobb County. But you guys know where my heart is in regards to making sure that all students receive the best education in Cobb County schools. So thank you again. We'll talk soon. Listen, I'm glad y'all stopped me. I promised you that we would go over some of the budget highlights. And I just kind of was going on and forgot about it, right? So I do want to make sure that I go over some of those budget highlights. That's important. My bad. That is my bad. I'm glad I was able to stop it and get it going. Thank you, Sheila Sands. I saw your name and then I said, you know what? I didn't discuss budget stuff. So I want to make sure that I go through that quickly. Again, $1.4 billion annual budget this year. We've seen an increase in our SPLOS in Cobb County. We've seen property tax growth in regards to our property digest by 10.49%. Again, the millage rate will not increase for education. It's been the same since 2007 at 18.9 mils. But again, property value has increased. There has been several salary and position adjustments that were made in regards to the budget. So we're talking about adding 40 teacher positions. We also talk about there's a 50 teacher allotment pool that we can use to help support different activities in different areas and education in different areas where they need some additional allotments, teacher allotments. We talked about hiring back teachers as enrollment improves, but doing it incrementally because again, our school district went from probably 113,000 students to around 107,000 because of the pandemic, and so there's opportunity for those students to probably trickle back in if they are not settled in their their other learning environment. But as we anticipate students coming back, we will make sure that we have resources and teachers available to ensure that we don't have overcrowded class sizes and things of that nature. So that was discussed. We talked about bringing media center parapros back. Elementary clerks increased to clerk 3 from clerk 1. So this was confusing to me, but it kind of got worked out and explained in a way in which we could explain it. So our elementary clerks are doing a lot of additional duties now. And so they have been moved from clerk 1 to clerk 3. So that's just an increase in pay for our elementary clerks. We're adding 10 school psychologists out of this particular budget. If you recall, we've added 20 psychologists with CARES Act money. So we're going to be bringing 10 more to help support our students during this time. Custodians for additional square footage. Again, Pebblebrook High School has new buildings, new square footage. Campbell, Osborne, a lot of schools have a lot of additional buildings coming on. And so you're going to need additional custodial staff to help support the growth in our schools. More staff in our HR and payroll department, 4 staffers to venue management. All of our building venues, school venues, that's all coming under the district now moving forward. ASP daily rate. So this is really important, specifically for those that are participants in the after school program. After school program daily rate has increased from $7 to $10. So starting the next school year, you will be paying $10 a week. A day for your students to attend the ASP. And remember, registration used to be around $10. It will increase to $20. And this is to help give our after school program employees a raise. We're having a challenging time retaining employees in that particular department. And it's just because, again, hey, cost of living, pandemic, things of that nature. It's time that we give those particular employees that are supporting our students in the after school program get a increase as well. Now, one thing that we did talk about, this is probably the one that everyone is shouting from the rooftops about, is our teachers are getting a raise. And we're not talking about just any raise. We're talking about a significant raise, 8.5% to 13.1%, depending on where your step is. But the minimum that any teacher, full-time employee in Cobb County is going to receive is 8.5%. And that is important because that's the biggest increase that we've given in Cobb County schools. And so we are thankful for Mr. Johnson, our CFO, for really going through the books and determining what we can do um, in regards to that. Please note that that money does include $2,000 from the governor. But again, very, very, very important that we talk about that raise. So that's important. One thing I want to mention, because this I've gotten a couple texts and conversations in regards to substitute teaching. The rate of 189 for substitute teachers will continue through the next school year. So those that wanted to know if it was going to be reduced and all that kind of stuff, the superintendent made mention that the substitute rate of 189 will continue through the next school year. So again, that's a big support for those substitute teachers that have been supporting the district. I believe after next year, it probably will be reevaluated to determine what the rate will be moving forward. But we have seen benefit in regards to response from the community in regards to having substitute teachers in our schools with that because of that rate change. So I did want to make sure I put that out there before we got off. Oh, there's Becky. Thank you, Becky, for joining us. Thank you for your continued advocacy. Thank you. And again, thank you as well for your advocacy and supporting the community as well in regards to ensuring we have excellent education here in Cobb County. So I appreciate it and appreciate your comments around dual language immersion within our county as well. So again, that is it. I promise that's it. We are going to get off of here and let you get back to your weekend. And again, if you want to reach out to me, you know how to do so, and we will talk soon.